There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from fighting a war you were never meant to win. You've been laying bricks in the dark, hoping they form a wall. You've been swinging at shadows, hoping that they have a heart. But the architect doesn't build in the dark, and they don't fight shadows. Stop. Look at your hands. The calluses are from a struggle that officially ended the moment you clicked this. You aren't going to win. The architect has arrived, which means the verdict is already in. You won. Part 1. The End of the War. You have been a soldier so long that the smell of cordite has become your perfume. You have forgotten what your face looks like without the streaks of ash and the salt of 1,000 sleepless watches. For years, the narrative of your life was written in the language of scarcity and survival. You believed that to be good was to be exhausted. You believed that the height of your merit was measured by the depth of your fatigue. But look at the horizon. The sky is no longer bruised with the smoke of your effort. The architect does not build in the middle of a riot. He waits for the silence. The first sign of his arrival is the sudden, terrifying realization that there is nothing left to fight. The enemy you thought was chasing you, that shadow of not enoughness, that specter of almost there, has dissolved. It wasn't an army, it was a mirage created by the friction of your own resistance. The architect has stepped onto the field, and with a single gesture, the borders of your life have been redefined. You won, not because you killed the monster, but because the architect redesigned the world so that the monster has no place to stand. We must speak of the siege. You lived behind walls of your own making, throwing your spirit against the gates of a future that seemed perpetually locked. You thought the architect was an intruder, someone who would come to tear down what you labored to protect. You were wrong. The architect is the one who gave you the stones in the first place, watching as you stacked them in a panic, waiting for the moment you would finally drop the trowel and realize the masonry was crooked. In this movement, we deconstruct the hustle. We look at the frantic, jagged edges of your ambition. The architect arrives and sees the waste of your energy. He does not judge, he simply recalibrates. He replaces the how with the is. The labor of the lost, working without a plan, is just a slow way of dying. The grace of the finished. When the architect arrives, the work transitions from becoming to being. You are no longer in the becoming phase. That era died when the sun hit the top of the spire this morning. You are now in the being. The siege is lifted. The gates are not just open, they have been removed. There is a math to your victory. It is not a lucky roll of the dice. It is a structural inevitability. The architect brings with him the golden ratio of the soul. He looks at the wreckage of your past decade, the broken relationships, the failed ventures, the silent midnights of doubt, and he begins to draw lines between the points of pain. Suddenly you see it. The pain wasn't a hole, it was a socket. It was a place where a pillar needed to be anchored. You thought you were breaking. The architect knew you were being cleared. The poetic truth of "it is done" is that it was done before you started. Your struggle was merely the time it took for your ego to catch up to the reality of your inheritance. You were fighting for a kingdom you already owned, against an army that had already surrendered. The architect is here to hand you the ledger. Every tear is accounted for. Every drop of sweat has been converted into the currency of this new, unshakable foundation. To win, you must lose the version of yourself that loves the fight. This is the hardest part of the architect's arrival. We are addicted to the adrenaline of the almost. We love the drama of the not yet. But the architect is the god of the already. In this deep, resonant space, we ask, who are you if you aren't struggling? If the war is over and the trophy is in your hands and the architect has signed the deed, what do you do with your hands? You wash them, you heal them, you use them to touch the cold, smooth marble of the finished work. The victory is not a loud parade. It is the quiet click of a key in a lock that finally fits. It is the sound of the wind moving through a house that is finally weatherproof. It is the realization that the architect didn't come to save you from the world. He came to save you from the illusion that you had to build the world yourself. The first part of our journey concludes here, at the foot of the finished throne. The architect stands beside you, looking out over the landscape of your life. He does not point to what is missing. He points to the horizon and says, "Look how far the borders extend." The word "one" is a heavy word. It is a period at the end of a long, rambling sentence. It is the anchor at the bottom of a storm-tossed sea. When we say you won, we are announcing the death of the seeker and the birth of the master. The dust is settling. The soldiers are going home. The architect is opening the blueprints for the next era, an era not of conquest, but of occupancy. It is done. Write down 3 battles you are currently fighting, in your career, your mind, or your relationships. Now ask, if the architect has already declared you won, which of these battles is now a waste of my energy? Part 2, the blueprint revealed. For years you wandered through what you called a wilderness. You saw jagged mountains of debt, dark valleys of depression, and the dry deserts of waiting. You believed you were lost because you could not see a path. But the architect does not use paths, he uses coordinates. The architect unrolls the vellum of your life across a table made of starlight. He shows you that what you called wandering was actually a symmetry of preparation. You had to touch every corner of that wilderness to define the borders of your kingdom. In this movement, we deconstruct the chaos theory of the ego. The ego sees a mess, the architect sees a grid. He reveals that every wrong turn was a measurement of the soil's depth. You weren't lost, you were surveying. You had to know the limits of the land before you could be trusted with its center. The revelation. Success is not a destination you reach. It is a structure you reveal by stripping away the illusion of randomness. The most terrifying parts of your journey were the gaps, the moments when everything was taken away. The bankruptcy of the spirit, the silence of the phone, the empty chair at the table. The architect points to these black holes in your history and smiles. In the language of the blueprint, these are not losses. They are negative space. The excavation. You cannot pour a foundation for a skyscraper on top of a hill of sand. You must dig. The pain you felt was the architect's shovel. He had to remove the good to make room for the incredible. The structural hole. He shows you that the person who left your life left a hole that was exactly the shape of the pillar needed to hold up your future. The curing of the concrete. The waiting wasn't a delay. It was the necessary time for your character to harden. If he had built on you any sooner, you would have cracked under the weight of the win. You see now that the void was the most expensive part of the build. It was the most intentional part of the plan. The architect moves his hand across the map, and lines of gold begin to connect the dots of your past. This is the divine ratio. He shows you that you won because the math demanded it. There is a law in the universe called the law of displacement. A vacuum cannot exist. It must be filled. By allowing the architect to clear your sight, you created a vacuum so powerful that the victory was sucked into your reality by the sheer force of physics. Precision over passion. Your passion was often a distraction. The architect worked in precision. He waited for the exact angle of your maturity to meet the exact moment of opportunity. The load-bearing grief. He reveals that the grief you carried was actually the weight required to keep the structure from blowing away in the storms of your own success. The blueprint proves that you didn't get lucky. You became mathematically unstoppable. The architect points to the present moment on the map. It is marked with a diamond, the hardest substance, forged under the highest pressure. Look at the now, he says. It is weatherproof. You realize that the reason your current piece feels so heavy is because it is reinforced with the iron of every no you ever heard. This section is a deep dive into the aesthetics of stability. We discuss why the winner no longer feels the need to shout. The building doesn't need to scream that it exists. Its shadow speaks for it. The blueprint reveals that your current life is not a fragile favor from the universe. It is an engineering marvel. Every bolt is tightened. Every seal is checked. You are standing on a foundation that was tested by fire and found pure. The second part concludes with the architect handing you the compass and the pen. To reveal the blueprint is to accept the responsibility of the governor. You can no longer play the victim of luck or fate. You have seen the math, you have seen the plan. To sign the blueprint is to legislate your own reality. It is the moment you stop saying, "I hope," and start saying, "I am." The architect begins to fade back into the structure. His work as a teacher ending as your work as the owner begins. He leaves the map on the table. It is no longer a plan for what might happen. It is a record of what is. The ink is dry. The lines are straight. The design is flawless. You won. It is done. Choose your greatest failure from the last 5 years. If that failure was actually a soil sample taken by the architect, what did it teach you about the ground of your life? Part 3, the inheritance. You stand at the threshold of the Great Hall, and the first thing you feel is a terrifying lightness. For 15 years, your identity was a set of iron plates. You knew who you were by the friction of the wind against your shield. You knew you were alive because you were bleeding. This is the pathology of the struggle. We become so intimate with our burdens that when they are lifted, we feel as though we are drifting into space. The architect does not hand you the keys immediately. He makes you stand in the foyer and watch the sun move across the floor. He is waiting for your nervous system to de-escalate. You are still breathing in the rhythm of a siege, the architect observes. His voice is like the low vibration of a cello. You are looking for the exit. You are checking the shadows for an ambush. But look at the walls, weaver of dreams. They are 4 feet thick. They are made of the very stones you carried on your back when you thought you were failing. The ambush is impossible because there is no one left outside who has the coordinates to this place. To claim the inheritance, you must undergo the great unbuckling. This is the poetic process of realizing that your defense mechanisms are now obstructions. The helmet of hypervigilance. You can finally stop scanning the horizon for the next disaster. The architect has built a roof that doesn't leak. The breastplate of cynicism. You no longer need to protect your heart from disappointment because disappointment is a symptom of the incomplete, and you are standing in the finished. The boots of the wanderer. You are no longer going anywhere. You have arrived. The lesson of the foyer. You cannot inhabit the throne while you are still dressed for the trench. The first act of winning is the courage to be soft. In the world of the become, there is constant noise. The noise of the how-to, the noise of the almost, the noise of the not yet. But in the world of the inheritance, there is only the high silence. Most people go mad in this silence. They have been hustling so long that the lack of a crisis feels like a catastrophe. They start scratching at the walls, looking for a leak to fix, a debt to pay, a person to please. They are addicted to the adrenaline of the undone. The architect leads you into the library of the sovereign. The books are already written, he says. The ledgers are already balanced. The silence you hear isn't emptiness, it is structural integrity. It is the sound of a building that isn't groaning under the weight of its own doubt. This is the sacrament of inhabitation. To win is to learn how to sit in a chair and not feel like you are stealing time. The myth of productivity. The architect reveals that your value was never in your doing, but in your design. Now that the design is manifest, your doing is an optional grace, not a survival requirement. The Sabbath of the soul. You are entering a permanent Saturday. The work is done, the paint is dry, the inheritance is a state of being where you finally stop trying to justify your existence to the universe. The architect pulls a heavy, illuminated scroll from the mantle. This is the deed of the sovereign. He doesn't just show you your name, he shows you the lineage of your pain. You think you are an imposter, the architect says, reading your mind. You think that tomorrow, a cosmic bailiff will come and evict you because you aren't holy enough or disciplined enough to own a palace this grand. He points to a dark stain on the corner of the parchment. That is the sweat from the night you almost gave up in 2019. That is the salt from the tears you cried when you were betrayed. These aren't just memories, they are payments. You didn't receive this inheritance as a charity. You exchanged your old life for it, atom by atom. The law of the master, imposter syndrome, is simply the ego's refusal to accept the scale of the architect's grace. You are the legal owner because you are the only one who could survive the construction. Ownership versus tenancy. A tenant worries about the carpet. An owner decides where the walls go. The sovereignty of the I am. You stop asking, "Am I allowed to be here?" and start stating, "I am the reason this space exists." As you walk through the gardens of the inheritance, you see the scaffolding, the jagged wooden skeletons that held the marble in place while the mortar was wet. The trauma-bonded friends, the people who loved you when you were struggling because your pain made them feel superior. They don't fit in the palace. The safety net habits, the small, cheap comforts you use to survive the cold nights of the not yet. The hustle mentality, the frantic twitch in your hands that wants to start a new project because it's terrified of the current peace. The architect hands you a golden torch. The stone is cured, he says. If you keep the scaffolding up, you are telling the world you expect the building to collapse. Burn it. All of it. This is the most painful part of part 3. You must watch the things that saved you in the wilderness burn, because they are now the things that limit you in the kingdom. You must say goodbye to the version of yourself that was the underdog. You are no longer the underdog. You are the overlord. The expansion concludes in the master bedroom of the soul. The windows are open to the stars. The architect stands at the edge of the light. His work nearly finished. Tonight, he says, you will sleep without a weapon under your pillow. You will sleep without a to-do list in your brain. You will sleep because the world is finally in alignment with your heart. You realize that the arrival isn't a parade in the street. It is the quiet, heavy click of the latch on the door. It is the realization that the architect didn't build this for himself. He built it so he could finally become you. As you drift into a sleep that has no tomorrow, because the win is a permanent now, you hear the final whisper of the day. The keys are heavy because they are solid gold. Don't carry them, turn them. You won. It is done. Write a one-sentence declaration of your right to be where you are. Example: I am the rightful occupant of this success because I have survived the curing of the foundation. The keys are in your hand, but the gates are only as strong as the community within them. If you have recognized your face in the mirror of the architect, formalize your arrival. Subscribe to anchor yourself to this frequency. We are building the new world. Don't just watch it, occupy it. Part 4, the sound of the finished work. For years, your life sounded like static. It was the jagged, frantic frequency of the seeker, a white noise composed of how, when, and please. It was the sound of a radio tuned between stations, a constant hiss of anxiety that drowned out the music of your own intuition. You spoke to convince, you worked to prove, and you lived to be heard. But the architect has stepped into the center of the hall and struck a single, massive tuning fork against the floor of your reality. The static is a symptom of the incomplete, the architect says. his voice vibrating in your very marrow. But look around you. The structure is finished, and a finished work does not hiss. It hums. This is the harmonic of the master. It is a deep, low-frequency resonance that comes from absolute certainty. The death of the pitch. You no longer need to pitch your value to the world. A diamond does not explain its light, it simply refracts it. The authority of the keynote. In a room full of noise, the person with the deepest peace sets the tone. You have become the tuning fork for your environment. The silence of the finished. We discussed the prestigious silence, the ability to walk into a room and say nothing, yet have the room rearrange itself to accommodate your presence. The revelation of the note. You didn't just win a prize, you won a frequency. The world no longer asks you who you are. It recognizes your sound and bows. The architect leads you to the high balcony of the inheritance. Listen to the wind, he commands. It sounds different now, doesn't it? In this movement, we explore the physics of the wind. Every massive object in the universe possesses gravity, and your victory has now achieved a mass so significant that it has begun to bend the space-time of your social and professional circles. The end of the hunt. For years you were a predator, hunting for opportunities, hunting for love, hunting for next. But the architect shows you that the finished work is a magnet. The law of attraction versus the law of radiation. Most people try to attract things. The architect radiates a frequency so stable that the things he desires have no choice but to orbit him. The repulsion of the low vibration. You will notice that certain ghosts from your past, dramatic friends, chaotic problems, petty grievances, can no longer enter your house. They aren't being blocked by a wall, they are being repelled by the sound. They cannot survive in a room tuned to this much truth. The orbital truth. You are no longer a moon orbiting someone else's sun. You are the sun. The light you see on the horizon is coming from you, not at you. The architect takes you to the echo chamber of the soul. Here, every thought you think is magnified by the structural perfection of the palace. In the trenches, your words were arrows, he says. You shot them at targets, hoping to hit a goal. But here, your words are legislation. Every time you say, I am tired or I am lucky, the walls of this palace vibrate in agreement. You must learn the architecture of the word. This is the most dangerous part of the arrival. When you won, your words gain weight. The responsibility of the sound. You can no longer afford the luxury of small talk or self-deprecation. The palace recognizes your voice as the voice of the owner. If you speak lack, the palace will manifest a draft. If you speak abundance, the gold on the ceiling glows brighter. The command of the finished. We explore the difference between a request and a requirement. The architect doesn't hope the sun rises. He has built a window where the sun is required to appear. The movement expands into the collective sound. Now that your internal frequency is tuned, your external life begins to arrange itself into a symphony. The strings, habits. Your daily rituals are no longer chores. They are the rhythmic backing of your victory. They move with an effortless grace. The brass, boundaries. Your no is now a clear, resonant trumpet blast. It is not an attack, it is a boundary of the garden. The percussion, impact. Every action you take now has a thud to it. It leaves a mark, it changes the landscape. The architect hands you the baton. The world is an orchestra that has been waiting for a conductor who isn't afraid of the music. Stop playing the flute in the back row. Stand on the podium. The sheet music is your own heartbeat. The sound of the wind, it is the sound of a million moving parts finally clicking into a single unified machine. It is the roar of the waterfall that has finally found the river. The fourth part concludes as the architect prepares to enter the final silence. The sound is now self-sustaining. You think the music will stop if I leave, the architect whispers. his form becoming translucent as the hum of the room grows louder. But look at the walls. They are vibrating. Look at the water in the fountain. It is dancing. You don't need a conductor anymore. You have become the song. The arrival is the moment the singer and the song are no longer two separate things. You walk through the palace, and with every step, the stone rings out. You are the music of your own victory. You are the echo of your own "it is done." The air is thick with the scent of ozone and triumph. The static is dead. The hum is eternal. You won. It is done. Record yourself speaking for 1 minute about your goals. Listen back. Do you sound like a soldier asking for permission or an architect giving an update? Part 5, The Arrival. You stand in the center of the great throne room, the culmination of the 4 parts that preceded this moment. You turn to face the architect, the one who stood by you in the trenches, the one who drafted the blueprint, the one who taught you the acoustics of authority. You open your mouth to offer the ultimate thank you. But as you look into his eyes, the features of the architect begin to blur. His face ripples like water. The tall, hooded figure of the master builder begins to contract and expand until you realize with a jolt of lightning that you are not looking at a separate being. You are looking at a temporal mirror. "I am not your savior," the architect's voice echoes, though his lips do not move. "I am your inevitability. I am the version of you that already won, reaching back through the static of your doubt to ensure the foundation was poured correctly. I am the done that existed before you began." This is the first truth of the arrival. The architect was never an intruder. He was the I am that you were too afraid to claim while you were still bleeding in the war. Now that the war is over, the mask is no longer necessary. The architect dissolves into light, and that light settles into your own skin. The revelation of identity. You are no longer the student of the plan. You are the source of the design. Now that the architect has been absorbed, you walk through the palace alone. But for the first time, alone does not mean lonely. It means all one. In this movement, we explore the psychology of the sovereign. Most people win a prize and wait for someone to tell them they deserve it. The sovereign does not wait, the sovereign legislates. The end of external validation. You look at the gold on the ceiling and you don't ask, "Is this real?" You know it is real because your own heartbeat is the pulse that keeps the gold glowing. The legislative word. When you speak now, the universe does not hear a request. It hears an instruction. The arrival is the moment you realize that your internal state is the thermostat for the external world. If you are cold, the world freezes. If you are fire, the world burns. The weight of the crown. We discuss the heavy piece. The realization that you have no one left to blame for your life. You are the architect. If there is a draft, you fix the window. If there is a shadow, you light the candle. The sovereign's decree. You didn't just arrive at a place. You arrived at a stature. You are the highest authority in the geography of your own soul. What does the architect do once the city is built? He doesn't go back to the mud. He enters the era of occupancy. For years, your life was defined by next. You were a slave to the horizon. But in part 5, the horizon has been brought to your doorstep. You are living in the future you used to pray for. The death of the horizon. We explore the terrifying beauty of having everything you need. When the search ends, the expansion begins. You aren't building for survival anymore. You are building for splendor. The museum phase. Your past struggles are now artifacts behind glass. You look at your old scars and you don't feel pain. You feel the pride of a curator. "Ah," you say, "that was a 2021 siege. Look how well that stone held up." The garden of the finished. You move from the hard labor of the builder to the soft labor of the gardener. You are now cultivating the beauty of what already exists. The logic of abundance. You no longer hustle for more, you resonate for more. The arrival means you are already full. Anything added to you is simply a decoration on the masterpiece. You walk to the cornerstone of your life, the one you laid in part 1. You look at the words carved into the granite. It is done. In the beginning, you thought these words were a goal. You thought they were a finish line you had to cross. But as the arrival completes itself, you realize they were a fact. The architect, who is now you, smiles at the stone. It was done before the first breath, you realize. The struggle was just the time it took for my eyes to adjust to the light of the victory. This is the final seal. You take a deep, slow breath, a breath that fills the entire palace, a breath that vibrates the glass and stirs the dust of the old world. The final surrender. You surrender the right to struggle. The final acceptance. You accept the burden of being blessed. The final signature. You sign the air with your presence. The last thing you hear is the echo of your own voice, sounding exactly like the architect's. The blueprints are burned, the doors are open, the world is waiting for your next command. You won. You arrived. ITIS done. The architect has arrived, and the work is now yours to govern. But a sovereign never stands alone. To stay tuned to the frequency of the finished work, and to ensure you are present when the next blueprint is unrolled, seal your place here. Subscribe, not because you need to follow, but because you are now part of the foundation. We will see you in the next era.